This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning is Kristen McQuarrie, she of the Chicago Tribune editorial board. And, we had so much fun with Lanny Davis yesterday, Kristen, and you did such a great job trying to help him raise money for Michael Cohen's GoFundMe page and campaign.
Yeah, I actually stood out at the intersection this morning out here with a cup, and it's coming. Donations are coming slowly, but surely.
Well, you have an empathy I just don't possess. I mean, you see a tragedy like what befell Michael Cohen, as Lanny Davis described it, and you act. And that's,
I jumped.
You're a better
person.
person.
Into action.
You're a better person.
Yeah.
So with Lanny,
none of this was self-inflicted on his part. Michael Cohen, he's
right.
just a victim of circumstance. Throw up your hands. It happens.
Sometimes your debt load misstates itself in bank documents. So that can happen, sure. And then we also had to figure out if Lanny Davis was going to come clean about being Saul Rosenberg from the Jerky Boys. And we're still waiting for a response of whether he's going to admit that.
Haven't seen him in a room together.
He was one of the original Jerky Boys. So we didn't get to Chuck Todd, but Chuck Todd made some rather interesting pronouncements right after the day of the Michael Cohen plea agreement and the Manafort conviction. Listen to Chuck Todd suggesting what Republicans would be doing if we had a functional Congress.
Here's what it could mean. It could mean that you now have the President of the United States accused of committing a federal crime. The way a functional Washington would work is that Congress, there is a process here. The sitting president is accused of a crime. The Judiciary Committee and the House of Representatives would begin to look to see if there's enough evidence to start investigating and drawing up articles of impeachment. But this is not a functional Congress. This is a Congress controlled by Republicans. They'd have to do this on their own president. But I have to tell you, I think there is going to be increased political heat, and you're going to have a divided Republican Party. Those that are fearing Trump as a drag, and then those that know that his base is there to the end.
And in addition to that, Chuck Todd had a message for Paul Ryan as he exits stage left after the end of the year.
I do think Paul Ryan needs to think long and hard about the future of the Republican Party. This is your last chance off this train. And it looks like Manafort and Cohen only have more to say, only may cooperate more. This could get worse. Ryan's retiring. I think he actually could do the party a favor. And if you just start the procedure in the House Judiciary Committee, you give some home, you give some place for Republicans getting nervous.
It's so interesting to me when you have a leftist like Chuck Todd offer advice to the Republican Party, what the left likes to do, kind of woo you in. Hey, look, I'm worried about what's going to happen to your party. So you don't have to fully surrender right now. Just begin the surrender. Begin the orderly surrender to save your party. Okay. Hey, thanks for the tip, Chuck.
Also, he's supposed to be a straight shooter. He's not on the opinion side, right?
No.
He is supposed to be a straight shooter.
But
he is going to the wall, giving advice on how to save Paul Ryan's legacy by starting impeachment.
And the Republican, this is the last moment to get off the train is essentially what he said, isn't it? The train's leaving the station. You better get off now. Paul, don't do this, man. Don't do this to yourself and your party.
I mean, honestly, and he probably really thinks that was very, prophetic what he said. But
let's see if we can get more dispassionate analysis than Chuck Todd. Pleased to be joined again by our friend Bret Baier, Fox News anchor, of course, special report, weekdays 5 p.m. Chicago time. The book, 3 Days in Moscow, Ronald Reagan and the Fall of the Soviet Empire. Bret, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. I keep pleaded with a lawmaker to do something. I don't know. I don't think I've done that, no.
You don't think you've done, I'm sorry, we missed that first part. You don't think you've done what with a lawmaker?
I don't think I've pleaded with a lawmaker to do anything.
Please don't. It's not a good look.
Yeah, so is that what you're hearing from the Hill is let's begin the orderly surrender from Republican leadership?
No. I mean, listen, there is concern
of course.
In the Republican ranks. They don't know where this is going. But there is not like, this is one of the avenues we should definitely take start impeachment. No, that's not going to happen. I don't know where the wishful world is that Chuck is in, but it's not going to happen.
Well, and he needs
it's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
He says it's dysfunctional. It's not dysfunctional. Tell me a Democratic Congress that will start it, judging by the facts that we have on the table now, and a Democratic president. Do you think that they would start impeachment in the Judiciary Committee?
Right, and before he makes his plea to Paul Ryan, he's got to make it to Nancy Pelosi, who said impeachment is not a priority after the Cohen plea.
Yeah, and listen, it could get to impeachment. Who knows? But what they have now on the table, the thing that they're debating up on Capitol Hill, is whether that's a campaign violation. And I think you can go around the horn. Alan Dershowitz thinks one thing. Other legal experts think other things.
Right.
But what is clear is that it's not enough to impeach the president as of yet.
So I can't help but keep referring back to Bill Clinton and looking at how Democrats then during impeachment debate were quoting the Bible. They were protecting him. I'm not joking. They were quoting the Bible and talking about sin. Here was someone with charges of perjury and obstruction of justice. And in the Senate, we had Dick Durbin, who's still there, who voted not guilty on both of those charges with Bill Clinton. What are your thoughts as we seem to be kind of entering this again? Do you see comparisons to the Bill Clinton situation, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. And there will be a lot of comparisons. There will be a lot of sound bites on both sides that are hypocrisy central. Lindsey Graham will be, he was trying the case in the Senate against Clinton. So there will be sound bites of Lindsey Graham saying, you don't have to have a crime. You need to move forward. This is about the sanctity of the office. And he will likely say something different now. But what is key is what are the high crimes and misdemeanors? What is the case that opens up the can of worms? We may get there with a report from Mueller sometime before the midterms. We don't know. But right now, what's on the table it doesn't seem like enough to open up either party launching that.
Speaking of Lindsey Graham, he's also changed his tune, maybe too strong, but he seems to recognize the reality on the ground. But in terms of the relationship between President Trump and Jeff Sessions, that Lindsey Graham telegraphing essentially my read that Jeff Sessions is gone after the midterm election.
Yeah, he's not alone. I mean, Chuck Grassley, the chair of that committee, had said that there was no way that they would do hearings for another AG, and now yesterday said, well, I could find time. That's a different signal. It's a different signal. And if you look at the president's tweets this morning, it's not going in the right direction.
Now, we had a call earlier in the show sort of make a good point that I had forgotten about, that back in the spring, Jeff Sessions tasked this U.S. attorney out of Utah, John Huber, with investigating Republican allegations of FBI wrongdoing and wrongdoing in connection with the Hillary Clinton email case as well, or mishandling of that case. And sort of, I remember that task being handed to that U.S. attorney, and then sort of we haven't heard anything more about it in the intervening 5 months now.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we had the IG report from Horowitz,
right,
and that listed all kinds of things related to that. But you're right, that U.S. attorney we haven't heard from. I think the IG is going to have another report about the early stages of the Trump investigation, which probably will be filled with some other doozies in there. And I think that the president wants to see something from Sessions or Rosenstein about this side of the investigation.
What did you think in his sit-down yesterday with your network? What was the most surprising thing that he addressed? And if you could also, you've defended the press in his attacks of enemy of the people. He sort of walked that back a little bit. What are your thoughts in general about that sit-down interview?
Yeah. Well, listen, he said not everybody in the media is enemy of the people, but 80% is fake news. He said fake news is the enemy of the people. And, listen, I've said before, I don't like that term because fake news is in the eye of the beholder. Sometimes fake news for the president is news that he doesn't like. And it's easy. You just put the stamp on it and then tweet it out. Other times it's very justified as various outlets go over their skis in their kind of hatred for this guy. And so what was most surprising to me was his kind of walking back the payment to the women and kind of talking about it very differently than he's talked about it before.
Yeah, what was most surprising to me is that Melania is doing very well, though she doesn't like a lot of the press coverage. I mean, the Melania question, which Ainsley sort of softballed, which is appropriate, just to get a response, because people are thinking about that. How is Melania reacting to all of this swirl? And frankly, an understanding that Trump may have been something less than truthful about his extracurricular activities. Maybe she knows. Maybe that's all been settled between them. Who knows? I don't know. But certainly, that relationship is something of public interest.
Yeah. I mean, and she's kept a very low profile. She did have that one event about, social media, and some people took it, is she trolling her husband? She's taking a solo trip to Africa coming up in coming weeks. So, yeah, a lot of people are reading the tea leaves there. But the main thing is what's getting done in Washington and what isn't getting done. And it's really interesting. You have, last thing, you have the iceberg above the water, which is all of the controversy, the day-to-day, the tweets, the craziness. And then there is an iceberg below the water that a lot of stuff is changing in Washington, regulations, how things work. And we're trying to cover all of that.
Right, and you got Kavanaugh hearings starting right after Labor Day, so more changes afoot. He is Bret Baier, Fox News anchor, special report weekdays, 5 p.m. The new book, 3 Days in Moscow, Ronald Reagan and the Fall of the Soviet Empire. Bret, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Andy, join us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.